What's up, y'all? I've got some really nice buffs for Pyukumuku, not just in the form of a dual typing, which gives them more resistances and is very fitting, which I'll elaborate more on in a second. Also because Black Sludge in this hack heals double that it used to, meaning that you get 12% HP in one turn. So with Protect, that's 24% HP for 2 turns, and of course Protect against the AI is pretty exploitable, although that won't bypass moves like First Impression and Wicked Blow and Surging Strikes and all these other common moves, especially late game, will crit and bypass through Protect. In general, it's still like a very safe bet. Pyukumuku has actual attacking moves, including punching moves, and if you don't know much about Pyukumuku, you might be thinking, what the fuck, how is this little Shikukuber using any type of attacks, let alone punching you? His attack animations in-game, like, explicitly show a giant fist coming out of his little innards, so that's really great. That is like, that there alone is logic for punching moves, and the Pokedex literally says, Pyukumuku hate to have their spikes and mouths touched, and if you step on one, it will hurl out its its fist-like inner organs to strike at you. Innards out is no more. Innards out is no more because this hack is balanced around hardcore Nuzlocke. Not guaranteed, meaning, if you're a less experienced player and you're not doing a Nuzlocke, you'll still have a very challenging and fun time. But for very experienced players of Pokemon, like, I'm not saying the hack would be easy without doing a Nuzlocke, because it wouldn't be, but I at least am balancing the difficulty around it for it to be Nuzlockable, if that makes sense. Like for experienced players to be able to Nuzlocke it, even on Team Locked, and have fun. Team Locked meaning you can't switch on your Pokemon, which is really viable in this hack because every Pokemon can do so many different things. It's fun to come up with all these creative strategies using what you have on your team. But in general, that's why Innards Out is no longer existing. Obviously, if it wasn't balanced on Nuzlocke, it would be a pretty useful ability to just check, strong stuff and sack off your Pyukumuku, but I don't love the idea of that. I give it level up moves like Memento and other Pokemon as well, because that's like a move, it's not an entire ability slot, but I don't want to dedicate a whole ability slot that's only viable in non-Nuzlocke, especially when I myself am going to be playing Nuzlocke. And this is a very self-indulgent ROM hack. But regardless, Pyukumuku has great stuff. So actual attacking moves, meaning it's a lot less passive. Not that it's like an offensive behemoth, it still is pretty weak. I made it equal in both offenses because it does have that fist, and it's also like a Cucumber who has like this weird, innards. Like I can see him like shooting, acid and stuff and all that crap. If you read the Pokedex, it also talks about him smacking you and punching you and stuff. So you could argue I could have given him more base attack, like 80 base attack maybe, but I think mixed is a little bit like, I feel like anything over like 65 is just kind of cursed for Pyukumuku. Same with HP. I do base HP more on size in this hack, so you might be wondering why is any bulkier, especially in a hack like this, but I think that buff Black Sludge and 150 defenses is plenty bulky enough with 65 HP and the incredible utility moveset that he has, including Strength Up at 45, which is pretty damn early, and that will keep him alive forever. Your 2 abilities are very good. So the new ability I chose over Unaware, which I'll get into why that's good, is Oblivious. Oblivious is really good, actually, because, well, number one, it fits, because it's the same logic as Unaware, and it fits very well because, it's very good, is what I'm trying to say, because Oblivious prevents Taunt. And that alone is really worth using in a hack like this, where a lot of, especially lead Pokemon, will be using Taunt against you to stop you from trying to set up or sweep. Pyukumuku doesn't give a shit about that. He can do whatever he wants in the face of any Taunt user. That's really good. That's a very good tool to have in this hack. Unaware, very useful for totems, especially. Pyukumuku alone can probably solo like half the totems in the game just because of the moveset that they have. With Unaware, you can just Toxic Stall them or Soak them to remove their stab, or like Clear Smog them, or Priority Haze them, or any type of things, and you can Parting Shot out into your ally. You can T-Spikes, that's great for a lot of boss fights, especially T-Spikes is really useful, plus Parting Shot into your Abuser. You also have Baton Pass, which is negative priority, which doesn't matter in this case, with Z Purify. Purify is now a grass type move that other Pokemon have. And Purify is also technically useful on its own. I wouldn't say it's not useful because you do have Strength Sap right there, but Purify will heal you by 100% HP and cure the opponent's status. So you can Toxic and then you can Purify if you're low HP, but that's not the best way to go about it, honestly. It's mostly for the Z move, which will, even if the move fails, you'll still get the Omni Boost, and then you can Baton Pass that Omni Boost into your teammates. It's a great Baton Pass user. You can also Baton Pass Power Up Punch boosts, and you can Baton Pass Z Soak boosts, which will give you +2 special attack. And a couple other Z moves will give you plus stats, so you can use those. Stockpile, you can Baton Pass that as well. Keep in mind that Swallow is buffed to heal you by 100% HP, and it's priority now, so that's really good for Pyukumuku in conjunction with Spew Out, which you can honestly just use those 3 moves and stall a lot of boss fights with Black Sludge and Stockpile, Swallow, Spew Out spam. Spew Out will be 100 to 300 base power, depending how many Stockpile boosts you have, and it will drop Speed F by 4. Acid Spray also drops Speed F by 4. Acid Reflux, which comes from Gastro Acid, will also drop Speed F by 4 and poison the opponent, so you have lots of ways to drop Speed F, making you much stronger. because the AI does not switch out. So once you get one acid spray off, you're doing a lot more damage. So that's great on a bulky, solid guy like this. And you might be thinking, water poison, that makes him compete more with Toxapex. And you'd be right, it does make it compete with Toxapex. But Toxapex is less bulky. It's 60, 152, 142 versus 65, 150, 150. And Toxapex is vulnerable to taunt. Toxapex doesn't have unaware. Toxapex doesn't have half the support moves that Pyukumuku does, especially Strength Sap and Baton Pass. And in general, I would say they're just very different Pokemon because Toxapex is a lot more offensive now with that Merciless ability and actual usable special attack stat, and more different move pool. But yeah, Pyukumuku, really cool. That Black Sludge buff is huge. That's the main reason I made it Poison type. It also just fits really well. Its signature move in Vanilla was Poison type in Purify, and then it has like more Poison moves by level up than it does Water moves. Not saying that that means too much because of course Water normal type moves are there. Shit, it even has more Dark moves than it does Water by level up. So I'm not trying to say that like Fighting type or Dark type makes more sense than Water, but I think Water Poison is really fitting typing for a Cucumber. Most Cucumbers are also poisonous in the wild. So that fits very well. And I think a lot of poison moves just fit him really well with that Black Sludge buff. It's a really good typing for him, and it gives him more resistances. So you might be arguing, oh, pure water. Oh, isn't that better? You do have more resistances as a water or poison, I believe. Yeah, you have much more resistances: fire, water, bug, ice, fighting, poison, steel, and fairy. And you only gain one extra weakness. So it's totally fair. Very good dual typing. There's a reason that, you know, water poison is a great dual typing, and he doesn't compete too much with the other water poisons. Like Tentacruel, for example, is much more offensive utility with energy shield, strength sap, and you know, adaptability, and you know, much faster, and it has really good special defense, but its physical defense is mediocre. And then you have Quillfish with Intimidate and Instinct, which makes him really powerful, really offensive, and then also really defensive with Intimidate. And he has like well-rounded bulk and good speed, and he's like faster utility as well, similar to Tentacruel. So I'd say both of those guys are more comparable to one another, while Pyukumuku and Toxapex are more comparable to one another because they're both slower. But yeah, and that's also, like I said earlier, I give him punch moves. Water Pulse is really good because it drops attack and special attack by 1. So you can like Water Pulse in on a really scary threat. You can get a T-Spike up, you can Toxic it, and you can Parting Shot into your ally who is now actually able to come in safely. That's really good support, especially for Nuzlocke. It's a really good Pokemon, definitely worth using. If you don't like passive, boring stuff, you know, I wouldn't say boring, but if you don't like passive defensive stuff and you want to use Unga Bunga offensive stuff, number one, you'll definitely get punished for doing that unless you're not doing a Nuzlocke, in which case you could just trade everything, I guess, and you could probably be fine. But if you're doing a Nuzlocke, there's no way you can have like 6 free out Pokemon. You have to be really smart with playing them if you are, because this is intended to be played on set as well. So having defensive backbones like Pyukumuku is definitely worth your time. Parting Shot logic might seem weird, but he did get Taunt already, so I feel like if you can learn Taunt, you can probably learn Parting Shot, at least in a hack like this where I give it to like everything. Yeah, all right, thank you so much for listening, everybody. I'll be back for more buffs and changes coming up. Pretty simple one here again. Hopefully I covered everything. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments. Counter Mirror Coat is also good, by the way. That's like really reliable way to deal damage. Counter Mirror Coat, also Foul Play. He's got so many ways to deal damage, and even just straight up regular attacks with investment will kill certain boss fights, like if you need to hit a certain Pokemon. Liquidation might be a little bit weird, but he has that fist to punch with, so I think it's fine. All right, hopefully I covered everything. Peace. Last thing I'll say, Water Sport, good for Totem Marowak, if it's even legal by that point, which it might be. It might be. And then I think it should be on the beach still. So Mud Sport, very good for Tokenomaru. Those are priority moves now as well. Same with Haze. So yeah. Peace, everyone.